Have you ever lied awake at night wondering about the biggest real estate deals that have ever been done? In this video, you're going to learn about some of the largest, most significant, and consequential land transactions that have ever taken place in recorded history. To understand the first great real estate deal, we need to rewind the clock all the way back to the late 1400s. Around the time when Christopher Columbus was discovering New World territories, there were two international superpowers that presided at the time: Spain and Portugal. With the discovery of a new world across the Atlantic Ocean, the two nations had to decide which territories were going to belong to which nation. The monarchs of both countries could not reach a proper settlement, so before war broke out, Spanish rulers enlisted the support of Pope Alexander VI to help them end the conflict in 1493. However, when the Pope made his announcement, which sided more with Spain than it did Portugal, this wasn't received well by the Portuguese rulers, and they demanded more negotiations with the Spanish monarchs. Seeing that Spain was at somewhat of a disadvantage to Portugal's superior military power at the time, Spain relented and agreed on setting a new point of demarcation that would split the new land discoveries into two separate territories. Representatives from both Spain and Portugal met at Tordesillas 1 year later to finalize their negotiations, and the result was a revised north to south line moving to 370 leagues west of the Cape Verde Islands. This enabled Portugal to claim the entirety of Brazil and Spain to gain rights to land spanning from Chile to North America. And if you've ever wondered why Brazil is the only country in South America that speaks Portuguese while all the other countries speak Spanish, it all stems back to this landmark treaty that was signed on June 7, 1494. Now, if we fast forward a few centuries, this brings us to the next mammoth land deal that shaped much of the modern-day continental United States as we know it. In 1803, Napoleon Bonaparte had conquered most of Europe, which had turned out to be a very expensive ordeal. His next plan was to invade Britain, which would also consume large financial resources. His answer to this problem was to sell off the territory of Louisiana, which he had acquired from Spain in 1800, with the original intent of re-establishing an extended colonial empire in the West Indies and the Mississippi Valley. But with his plan to invade Britain, this territory in North America didn't seem to offer that much value and was half a world away. It also helped that the United States was a young nation and was a motivated buyer. When representatives from the US went to Paris, they assumed that only New Orleans and the surrounding parishes were up for sale, but when they learned that Bonaparte was actually looking to sell the entire Mississippi basin, the US President Thomas Jefferson jumped at the opportunity. Bonaparte received $15 million for the sale, and when adjusted for inflation, this is roughly $350 million in today's values. And with that purchase, the young nation of the United States doubled in size overnight. Less than half a century later, the original Oregon Territory, which encompasses modern-day Idaho, Oregon, Washington, Wyoming, and Montana, along with other parts of British Columbia, it became popular in the 1800s because of its lucrative fur trade, and as people saw the value in the region, many countries wanted to claim the area for themselves. These territorial claims resulted in intense conflicts between European and American colonists. As more Americans poured into the land, their territorial claims grew even more intense, to the point that the 1844 presidential campaign featured the battle cry 5440 or fight, which basically advocated the placement of the border at the 5440 north latitude. The border dispute between the United States and Britain was settled in 1846 with the signing of the Oregon Treaty. Under this agreement, the Europeans claimed the land north of the 49th parallel, including Vancouver Island, and the Americans gained the territory south of the parallel. And if you've ever wondered why there's that perfectly straight line separating the United States from Canada, this treaty is where that borderline originated. So not long after the Oregon Treaty was signed, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo was in the process of transpiring as well. When Mexico first got its independence from Spain in 1821, Texas was originally part of Mexico, but with all the growing disputes with the Mexican government due to the settlement issues that were going on, Texas decided to separate itself and asked to become a state of the United States instead. And this led to some pretty serious tensions between the two countries, to the point that a war broke out between Mexico and the United States in 1846, which the United States won after more than 2 years. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo was signed on February 2, 1848, and it ended the Mexican-American War. And under this agreement, the Mexican government recognized the Rio Grande as the boundary between Mexico and the United States. They also surrendered a vast tract of land, over 525,000 square miles, to the Americans for a payment of $15 million, which is about $500 million in today's values. This area now covers modern-day Arizona, California, western Colorado, Nevada, New Mexico, Utah, and Texas. Now, a couple decades later came the Alaska Purchase, but to understand the circumstances of this massive land deal, we need to backtrack to the first half of the 18th century, when Russia had established a presence in North America. But at the time, very few Russians actually lived in Alaska. After being badly defeated in the Crimean War, the Russian Tsar Alexander II acknowledged that it would be a huge challenge to defend this huge tract of land against any other future conflicts. And in 1867, soon after the American Civil War had ended, the U.S. Secretary of State negotiated with the Russian minister for the purchase of Alaska from the Russian Empire. The treaty was signed on March 30, 1867, and the U.S. Senate ratified it shortly thereafter by a wide margin. The purchase price was $7.2 million, which is roughly 2 cents per acre. And in modern terms, the cost was equivalent to roughly 128 million US dollars, or about 36 cents per acre. And with this acquisition, the United States added another 586,412 square miles to its territory. It's a pretty good deal, huh? So we've just covered 5 of the biggest land deals in recorded history, but there's actually a lot more you should know about, including the purchase of Manhattan Island, the 99-year lease of Hong Kong, the Treaty of Paris, and a lot more. Come and learn about all 12 of the greatest real estate deals of all time over at REtipster.com. And while you're here, be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel, and thank you very much for watching. See you next time.